Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to do a really easy beginner level watercolor of a deep sunset on the beach. Follow along to see how I do this process from start to finish, and I hope you can paint it too. Okay, so I start with a quick sketch of my two main palm trees. Very simple. I don't even put the leaves down because that's just going to come later with the paint. And a little, distant mountain. Alright, first I'm going to thoroughly wet my paper and make sure that the water stays more or less just in the skyline. I'm going to start with some new gamboge at the bottom of my sky. It's coming out pretty light so far, so I have to pack on a little bit more. The reason being that the paper is so saturated, and so I'm adding a little bit of scarlet here, blending it in pretty well with the new gamboge, adding in some purple by mixing cobalt with that scarlet. And these are the main colors I'll be working with: new gamboge, scarlet, and cobalt. A little bit of quin rose that I add just to change the tone of the purple, but alas, that little hair was not going to get off the picture. But it was a good try. Okay, I'm adding a deeper version of that cobalt and scarlet and making sure that I'm doing kind of back and forth longer strokes in the sky to keep it realistic. I'm just adding so much more of that darker pigment, keeping less water in my brush because my paper is already so wet that if I do that, I'll have runbacks and cauliflowers that I really don't want in a smooth sky. Adding in more of that purple and more of those deep scarlet striations in the sky. And when I get to the bottom of my sky, I'm mainly doing very thin sweeping motions, just because I want it to look like that part of the sky has receded. Now I'm going to show you a little trick to make my sun. I'm going to take a penny and put it in a paper towel, twist it up so it looks like this, and just going to stamp that sun right out. And there you go. Now you have a setting sun behind that mountain. It's a pretty easy trick to do. You just want to make sure that your paper isn't super wet when you're doing that. Otherwise the paint will just run right back into that circle. Building up my layers because I'm noticing that some of that paint is already starting to dry, and it really dried quite light and is no longer as intense. So I still have time. My paper, it hasn't reached that satin going into matte stage where it's dangerous to play with. It's still pretty wet. It has some decent shine, and so I'm just adding in as much paint as I can before I lose that element. Adding just some more purple on the left, bringing it up into the right side of the sky. And now it's dried, and see, it's not as intense as we thought it would be. All right, so I'm going to do a little bit of that very light purple to do that distant mountain. Give it that feeling that it's blending in into the background. And on the left-hand side, I'm doing a mixture of sepia and Payne's gray, carving out that piece of land. And I want this to be generally quite dark because, it's almost as if the palm trees are going to be almost a silhouette. There's going to be very little detail, and that is, what you're usually seeing at an actual sunset. All right, I'm going to soon leave this to dry. And it has dried, and I can get started on my palm trees, which the pencil marks have fairly faded because of that intense sky. That's all right. I can still see a little bit of the lines, so I'm just going to trace over. Thickening up the stems a little bit. I'm elongating the left one just so it's a little bit of a taller palm tree. Give something more interesting to the eye. And I get started on the leaves. I'm doing, keeping the stems fairly thin, and you really don't need to spend too much time on each individual leaf, or blade of leaf. I just do it really quickly. It gives it a more of a natural, less overworked look. The focus really, isn't on how precise you're making these palm trees. It's, are they going in the right direction? And as long as you have that feeling of them, in the wind, bending naturally, it's going to be a pretty convincing set of trees. I'm adding a little bit of green mixed into that sepia and Payne's gray, just to give it that hint of land. I didn't want to be completely monotone and brown, and I'm happy with how that's looking, and also it left a little bit of a texture. And I like that texture to give it more intrigue, and I'm adding a little bit more of that cobalt purple mixture onto the mountain. And, let's make our sun realistic. Let's add a little bit of light yellow, pretty pale, and then I'm dropping in a little bit of orange just to give it that sunset glow look. Just touching up on the palm trees here. Felt they needed just a little bit more of something, and I thought, I'm missing a little bit more detail that can probably enhance this image. Yeah, I think I liked what I did here. Okay, I am done. I'm not going to touch it anymore. And my favorite part, pulling back the tape and getting a good look at our work. And here's our finished painting. I have to say, I'm pretty happy with how this came out. I love the purple shades blending in nicely with that scarlet. I'm going to have to do more of these beachy, sunset, vibrant paintings from now on. Let me know if you tried this painting, if it was easy enough to follow along too. And if you have any questions or comments, definitely drop them down below. And I will see you all in the next video.